Hello, welcome to a live stream that I wanted to do today to talk about a news item that broke over the weekend that has the potential to impact the heavy duty parts industry. So I wanted to talk about it and give you the information. So maybe you have seen it, maybe you haven't, but over the weekend we saw the news break that Canada is, our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, is resisting pressure to drop the vaccine mandate for cross border truckers that is to go into effect on January 15th. So, how does this impact the heavy duty parts industry? And if you're in the US, why should you care? Well, to start with, as we all know, there are supply chain issues, and getting parts is difficult. It's difficult in the States. It's difficult in Canada. According to one news report here, let me just find it here, that 10% of cross border drivers could be pushed off the road by this mandate. So this is US drivers. This 10% would account for almost 16,000 US drivers could be pushed off the roads because of the mandate that you have to be vaccinated in order to cross. Now, the Canadian Trucking Alliance has been putting forth an alternative where truck drivers would be able to show negative COVID tests and things like that. But it sounds like our federal government is not interested in that approach and is going to go ahead with this mandate. Now, what I find a little puzzling about this is that the mandate of truck drivers here, like, go back 20 months when the pandemic started, and you have truck drivers being celebrated as everyday heroes. Canada also made the decision to close the border. The US and Canada, they closed the border, and it stayed closed for a year and a half. So regular citizens were not allowed to drive across the land borders. And this caused a lot of problems for people personally, especially if they had family on the other side of the border. It was a very difficult time. But through all of that, truck drivers were allowed to cross freely. Why? Because they were deemed necessary and essential for maintaining the supply chain. This mandate is the first policy measure taken since the beginning of the pandemic that would limit cross-border truck traffic. And I think this is this has the potential to generate a fair amount of fear. I know, as a Canadian myself, my first reaction to this is it necessary? What will it do to supply chains? And will it drive further inflation? Now, according to a government source, they say they do not anticipate significant disruptions or shortages for Canadians. But then again, this is coming from the same federal government that was quoted, our prime minister was quoted as saying that he wasn't all that concerned about the economics around printing all of this money. And then, only a few months later, inflation goes crazy and people are really struggling to make ends meet. So, forgive me if I don't trust this government source that says, well, we don't anticipate significant issues with supply chain, and then they go ahead with this mandate and it causes significant issues, and they'll be like, well, we didn't anticipate it, but there it is. And it's the everyday people that have to deal with that. And specifically, my friends who sell heavy duty parts here in Canada, they're already struggling to get enough parts into Canada to service and maintain the trucking industry. The trucking industry is the backbone of society, and these mandates have the real potential of hurting an already an industry, the trucking industry, that is so essential and is already struggling. So I think there's a lot of fear. Just to give you a perspective for our American friends of how many goods goes back and forth across the border each year between Canada and the US. It's $650 billion in goods is traded annually between Canada and the United States. So this is a big deal. If these 16,000 drivers, 10%, that could be $65 billion in goods that does not get across the border in a timely fashion, thereby increasing the supply chain issues. This causes supply to continue to not be able to meet demand. So demand continues to outstrip supply. What does that do? Inflation goes up even further. And the only way to stop inflation is for the federal government to then increase interest rates, which causes retail spending to cool, thereby slowing down inflation, but also impacting the trucking industry in a negative way, which of course has an impact on the people who sell the parts and do the repair and service to take care of trucks. So this is a very complicated issue. And it just seems to me that we, the balancing act that needs to happen between public safety and health measures and not overwhelming the medical system, but then also balancing that with making decisions that make sense for our industry, for the trucking industry, and protecting the trucking industry's ability to do what it does to support society at large. Now, I'll just conclude on this one thought here. According to an economist, Derek Holt, Vice President of Capital Markets Economics at Scotia Bank, he says, keep on trucking with the vaccine mandates, warning that there is a bigger price for the economy and for the health system if you don't get more people vaccinated now. Now, I by no means am an anti-vaxxer. I have the vaccine. I've been boosted. So I believe in the science behind vaccines, but I also have a real issue with mandating medical procedures. And I think that people should be allowed to make this decision based on their own personal beliefs, on their own research, on their own physical condition, and weigh the risks. And I just, having the federal government mandate medical procedures, this is a slippery slope. And I don't want to be an alarmist or a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but it is a slippery slope. And where does it end, and how do we control it, and how do we balance those things between the overall greater economy, the trucking industry, the needs of the drivers, the medical health care? Like, how do you balance all that? And obviously this is a highly complex issue. My only hope is that the new variant is going to push us into an endemic stage, thereby effectively ending the pandemic. And hopefully we will see the rolling back of mandates as we move out of the pandemic phase into the endemic phase, and normal life can get back. I think, honestly, I think that's what's going to save us, and that's what's going to help us to move beyond where we are today. But it is very worrisome to see federal governments, both around the Commonwealth and in the United States, trying to mandate medical procedures and medical decisions on its citizens. I do not like that. And so I really hope that this is a short-lived mandate that can be repealed very quickly, and we can carry on. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will keep an eye on this, because this does have an impact on the heavy-duty parts industry, as the supply chain issues have made it so difficult for heavy-duty parts distributors and manufacturers to get parts to the people who service the trucks that are part of the trucking industry, and that is the backbone of society. So we will keep an eye on this, and we'll keep you up to date. Thank you so much for tuning into this live broadcast. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.